Hello and welcome to Ozarks History. This is Vincent Anderson. Glad you're along for another ride with me today. We're going to take another little journey and excursion up into Missouri. We're going to go up into Ozark County. And for those who have still a problem with the word Missouri, we're going into Missouri. We're going up into Ozark County where I was raised at as a little boy up into my teenage years till I graduated high school. There's a certain spot up in Ozark County, a little place on T Highway. It's called Mammoth. Still pretty dear to my heart. And we're going to go up to Mammoth where the Possum Creek travels north from about Three Brothers area, across the state line, into Missouri, up to Lick Creek. And the confluence of the Possum Walk into Lick Creek is basically where Mammoth is located at. Before it was ever called Mammoth, it was called Lick Creek Valley. And so I lived down on Lick Creek Valley, right near the the family cemetery, the Mammoth Cemetery. We're heading in behind the Mammoth Cemetery, down at the confluence of Possum Walk into Lick Creek. That is a very important spot in history. 204 years ago, when we had Henry Rowe Schoolcraft and his partner traveling with him from up east, they came down into the Ozarks in 1818 and 1819. So they were through here in this area where we are going to December 5th and 6th. And a pretty significant incident happened in 1818 at that spot. So I'm going to take you there. We're going to take a look at what it looks like today and imagine 204 years ago and the tragedy that almost ensued, a disaster and most likely starvation. But it didn't happen. So some hard work was put into it, and they survived and made it out of the Ozarks in 1819. Well, here we go. Let's take a trip. And now, my Ozark friends, we are about to descend into Lick Creek Valley. Still love this spot. This is home. Welcome home. Well, we've made it to the Mammoth Cemetery. We're up on a small knoll up here on Lick Creek Valley where the cemetery is located at. It's a great place for a cemetery, really. Once when it was established, it wasn't established here. It was down here Mammoth, a little bit more proper on the valley. 1901 or so, there was a flood down here and disinterred quite a few bodies, shook the community up. So they relocated the old Miller Cemetery, which is down here, and relocated it up here and buried everyone up here. A lot of field stones for that era, but there's people that actually had tombstones also. None of my neck discoids are here that I'm looking for. I knew that. I was raised just about a quarter mile that way, here on the valley, and grew up riding my bicycle down here all the time. Also riding my motorcycle. I take my motorcycle down here on the creek, and we are heading to what we call down here an old slough. Some people may call it a swamp. Schoolcraft called it a swamp. Around here we called it the slough. It's where our little piece of history happened, but I just want to show this right here at the Mammoth Cemetery. Well, Burr, it's a little chilly up there. I think I'm going to need a jacket. Wind's blowing pretty good, 10 to 15 miles an hour today. It's my theme, wind. So let's head on down to behind the cemetery. One thing I do want to make mention of, getting access to some places you may need to go on private land. Always, which I'm going to have to do, always call ahead. Make sure that you have permission to park on the farmer's land and whoever owns it. Be respectful for wherever you go. It opens up more doors of opportunity in the future. Let's do this. Woohoo, we made it. And so let's go ahead and take off down to where Lick Creek and the Possum Walk run together, and we'll get to our story. Let's go. Right now I'm right on the banks. We're at the confluence of the Possum Walk and Lick Creek. They don't look like a whole lot at the moment. Boy, you just give us a little rain. Right now, I would be standing in water up to my shoulders. You can actually see the debris and the leaves here on some places, how high it gets up here, and then there's leaves up here about shoulder high on some other saplings. This is the confluence that Schoolcraft was talking about, and the swamp is right across from me. Kind of cool. Oh my goodness, I get back in here, I'm just like a kid in a candy store. And the candy shop is fully open. So we're going to dive into this story of Henry Rowe Schoolcraft and his traveling partner, Levi Pettibone. Don't you just like those? I just love those names, Schoolcraft and Pettibone. They were explorers through here in the Ozarks, 1818, 1819. They were journeying through here. Last week we were in Bennett's Bayou, and this is why I just decided I was at Bennett's Bayou, and I mentioned Schoolcraft crossed that area. And I thought, I need to go back up to Mammoth, to Lick Creek and Possum Walk, where they got their horse stuck. So I decided to come up here into the swamp where they got their horse stuck and they camped out. And I'm going to just read from their journal from December 5th, 1818. Here we go. Saturday, December 5th. The weather being clear this morning, we got our horse packed at an early hour and fording the river, we pursued a west course to Sugarloaf Prairie on the White River. After traveling 2 miles across the high ridge, we struck a small river tributary to the Great North Fork. Now that high ridge where they were coming in from is Howard's Ridge on J Highway in Missouri. Now, we followed up 7 or 8 miles and encamped in a canebrake on the low point of land formed by the junction of 2 streams near its head. Now, this exact location is that area. They were camping out about 50 yards over behind me on my right-hand side in the canebrake. So, camping in the canebrake, that's pretty smart, because what you can actually do, I'm on a rabbit trail here, but at nighttime, when you have wolves around here and you have red wolves and coyotes and mountain lions, you need some protection. And cane is one of the best things to throw into the fire because it has chambers in it of air pockets. And so every so often, if they get a little close, you can pitch a piece of river cane in there, and you're gonna hit, that thing will expand and swell and pop. And so if you ever go camping by a canebrake, just throw in a piece of river cane, just wait for it to pop. You need to stand back because it's gonna blow ashes or embers or whatever. Maybe you shouldn't do that, never mind that. But I'm just telling you, camping by a canebrake is not a bad thing to do. Now, traveling had been excessively bad owing to the hills and the roughness of the country and the thickets along the margin of the stream. Amen, I can believe that. The thickets through here, I was coming through briars and everything else, and saplings. Even in the wintertime, it's pretty thick through here. A portion of canebrake and swamp has also been encountered in crossing which our horse got mired, an accident which cost us great labor and threatened one of the most serious calamities which has yet attended our journey. An attempt to rescue him seemed fruitless. Our exertions only served to sink him deeper in the mire. We at last succeeded in getting off the pack, piece by piece, but after spending 2 hours in vain to extricate the horse, gave up the attempt. We now carried our baggage to a contiguous spot of dry ground and sat down to rest and contemplate our situation, which deprived us of our horse, which was truly deplorable. Here's the lowland. About 50 yards, 75 yards above here is higher ground. That's going to be going into the Mammoth Cemetery. That's why we parked up there. Moving right along, our skins, our cooking utensils, our axe, some part of our corn, meal, etc. must be abandoned. They're in bad shape. They have no way to carry their necessities and their supplies. Without these, we could not progress with any degree of comfort, and in resolving to renew our attempts exhibited perhaps less of reasonable perseverance than out of desperation. For on returning to the horse, he was now sunk. Oh my goodness. He was now sunk in black, soft mud so deep that the upper part of his back, head, and neck were only visible. That's a deep pit through here. Is that possible? Through here? Absolutely. Absolutely. But nevertheless, oh, love that word, nevertheless. You know, we have moments in our life we need a nevertheless. Well, here he has one. Schoolcraft and Pettibone have nevertheless. Nevertheless, we succeeded. With less than an hour's work in drawing him out and cleaning the mud from his body, so that we were enabled to repack him and travel on about 3 miles before camping. Some tolerable good lands have been observed on the stream we came up, but generally there is a want of timber, distance 9 miles. 2 observations just really quick off the top of my head. The want of timber. You come here to Ozark County, you're going to see trees everywhere, except on a few areas on the bottom of the lands here, on the creek bottoms. You know, we don't have as many trees. We have people, we got farmers growing hay, baling hay, got cattle out here. But in other places where they've just taken bulldozers and just clean cut or just completely cleared off hills and knobs around here to put cattle back on. I know some people really hate it. And in my heart, I hate to see a lot of the trees go. I'm trying to be optimistic here, but with the trees gone and we're getting the grasses back, it kind of looks like an Ozark savanna and prairie again. All you need to have the Ozark savanna and prairie again, you need to have a little bit more thickets, but they're not letting the thickets grow. But at least we have some fields growing around here. So that's my first observation, that when Schoolcraft came here, there was the want of timber. Blows my mind, just blows my mind. Secondly, my next observation is the black mire that the horse was sinking in. Now I'm going to show you this is some really rich dirt down here. If you want some rich dirt, you got to go to this kind of slough down here. But this is the black mire dirt that when it gets wet, you sink quickly. And I've already experienced it in my past. I've lost tennis shoes down here. I've lost boots and just have to turn around and pull them out and go down the creek and wash them out and walk back with a squishy sock. But I've gone down here in a motorcycle and about get stuck because it's not dry enough a lot of times for a motorcycle when I was a kid. That's back in the 70s and 80s, actually early 80s too. But this is a very miry area and it's a slough. And so when it gets really wet, you can lose a horse back here. You literally can. And there's some pits and divots through here that when it comes a good rain, I would not want to be in those because it's very, very soft. I even walked through here, coming in here to set up to film this, and I stepped in some really nice black soil right by a groundhog hole, right over here. Lost my shoe. I had to get down on my hands and knees and pull my shoe out, hop around 1 foot, clean my shoe off so I could have 2 shoes on my feet. So it still goes on down here. We get a chance in a moment. We're gonna go take a little bit more of a journey through here. Let's take a look at that cane brake where they camped out at. Let's go. I used to do some trapping down there. Shh, trapping. People don't like that word, but I did that as a kid. Let's go. As we're wrapping up Ozarks history, I want to kind of step back and talk about Schoolcraft on a personal reflection. And 204 years ago in December, being down here stranded with your horse in a swamp in the mire reminds me of a song as I was a kid. My dad used to sing, lead worship and sing, "He brought me out of the miry clay. He set my feet on the rock to stay." You know, that song still resonates in this swamp. Have you ever been in a thicket? Briars? Look at the briars here in the thickets. Nasty. They can hurt. They can leave scars on you that just sting for a day or two. Just remind you of your bad accident, the fate that's actually you've happened into. And sometimes you don't happen into it. Sometimes you purposely step into it. And you purposely step into a swamp and you know you've screwed up. And you know, in my life, I've made some pretty bad mistakes. Sometimes I've made some good choices. But you know, what's always helped out is always having a friend that you can call. Say, hey, I need a hand here. I'm in a swamp. And fortunately for Henry Schoolcraft, he had Levi Pettibone. Yeah, they went up there on the high ground. I think it's pretty interesting. The high ground they actually went to is up there on the Mammoth Cemetery area. Think things over. Little did they know that would be a cemetery someday. Not a bad place to be planted for eternity till the resurrection. But they went to the high ground. Reminds me of this knob right here. This knob's called Fox Knob. It's a high ground in my life as growing up. You know, I would have friends, a couple times we'd actually climb up on this knob up here and we would sit down on our butt in our blue jeans and we would slide down this hill. It's a pretty steep climb. To get up there, you got to hold on to cedar trees and saplings and pull yourself up. On the way gliding down, you got to watch out for the saplings hitting you in the mid-side. You don't want that. But it's called Fox Knob. Fox Knob. And I came up here and got out of my van and looked up and said, "Old Fox Knob." And you know, I took a walk through the swamp over this area, and you know, it didn't take but 2 minutes. And what did I see? I saw a little gray fox. A little gray fox. You know, it's those small things, those small signs, those small encouragements and nudges from the Lord that ever so often you get. Encourages you. I saw that fox and I heard in my heart, "Welcome home. Welcome home." Sorry to get a little emotional, I don't care. It's my channel. But I saw that little gray fox darting around. Went to a thicket. You know, sometimes we look at thickets as a horrible place to end up into. Sometimes thickets are a safety and protection. I've been in some thickets before. And pessimistically, I think I need to get out of this stuff. But sometimes the thickets make you realize who's your help, where your help comes from. You know, the psalmist David said, turn my eyes to the hills, whence cometh my strength. My strength comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Every time I think of that scripture or ever read that scripture, I think of Fox Knob. That's what I think of, Fox Knob. Anyway, if you're ever in a thicket, if you're ever in a swamp, I pray that you have a good friend you can reach out to and confide in. If there's no one there at the moment, you can always point your heart toward heaven and start talking to the Father. Always works. I'd like to wrap this up by saying thank you for everyone who is a sponsor and those who are liking and subscribing to this channel. I really appreciate it. We are so tickled to have you along with us on Ozarks History, learning these little things, these little tidbits of history. I enjoy going out here and sharing with you. I was digging out here in the swamp and I got this little trowel here. This is 22-inch trowel. It's called a trapper's trowel. When I was a kid, I had my first trapper's trowel and I was learning to trap these creeks here. This is cold rolled steel, sharpened, welded, wooden handle. Here in America, you can't beat that. And the price, $12.95. So I'm going to leave the link down below to Cabela's Bass Pro Shop. So I'm going to leave the link below to Cabela's and Bass Pro Shops to this little trowel. If you are a gardener, you don't have to be a trapper. If you are a gardener, if you put this little thing in your hand, you've got a good little tool here. And you can't beat it. It's on your doorstep. So thank you very much. We'll see you very soon on Ozarks History. Bye-bye. What happened significantly in an Ozark cane break in Ozark County in 1818? Come along on Ozarks History and we will discover what happens in the river cane. Hey, before we go on down to the creek, where the creeks come together at the confluence, we're at the very top right here, and we're at the Mammoth Cemetery. This is my family cemetery. I grew up just a quarter mile from here, right down the road. This cemetery holds a lot of sentimental value to me. My folks are buried here. I grew up riding my bicycle up here, riding around the tombstones, looking at ancestors, the people who once lived here. This cemetery was moved here in the early 1900s, about 1901, because there was a very bad flood down here on Possum Creek. Disinterred about 400, by the records, disinterred about 400 bodies. So what they did, they moved the cemetery down here off the valley and moved it right up here on this small knoll up here and called it the Mammoth Cemetery. Before it was called the Miller Cemetery. I had to stop by here. I need to check on one tombstone. It's significant to me. Not a family member, but it's still pretty significant to me. And I'll be back in just a moment. She walks through the corn. She walks through the corn, leading down to the river. Her hair shone like gold in a hot morning sun. She took all the love that poor boy could give her and left me to die like a fox on the run. Like a fox, like a fox, like a fox on the run.